Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Fowler, and I am the CEO, president, and co-founder of GSD Venture Studios, a premier AI venture studio. My background is as a serial entrepreneur, investor, and entrepreneur. I just love entrepreneurial activity. My show is dedicated to bringing the most incredible people from around the world, the most innovative companies, the most progressive to the show. And it's with great pleasure that I introduce my friend, Tilo Bonow. So Tilo, you've had an incredible background. I mean, I was looking through and it's like you're a mentor for Plug and Play, Dublin Tech Summit, advertising, investor. I mean, it's incredible. Tell me a little bit about your journey and a little bit about yourself.
Gary, first of all, thanks for having me. It's a really great pleasure to be here, and greetings from Berlin to everyone who is seeing us right now. My name is Tilo Bonow. I'm the founder and CEO of Piabo PR. We are here in Europe, a leading technology PR firm. My background is that I started in advertising actually, and then felt it's a bit too superficial, and moved then into the PR world because it's a bit more about storytelling, a bit more really connecting the people and engaging with people. That was always a great passion of mine. And also during this time in the advertising firm, we had the first e-commerce shop launched, and the PR agency, we had the first internet provider launched back then, and also presented the first venture capital fund. And then worked a little bit as a journalist, and then joined the Sambra brothers. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but the three brothers here that build a lot of companies and investing also a lot here, and being their head of global comms, and help with all kind of communication, public affairs, things like that. And at this time, it was 2006, I realized there are so many great entrepreneurs, startups out there, and there's actually no agency back then who really focuses on these up-and-coming companies who are really passionate about new technologies, understanding it needs a different kind of communication, right? When you have a new product that you have never heard about, inventing a new technology, have a new business model, maybe. So there are a lot of challenges. And on the other hand, you don't have these huge, big budgets like big corporates, what are you doing, right? So, and I thought I want to help these guys out, and all these up and coming rising stars. And that was really an amazing journey. And then it turned out that actually a lot of international companies reach out and say, hey, can you help us to enter Europe? So we launched, for example, have launched in Facebook or LinkedIn, companies like Stripe,
Tilo. So you
GitHub, etc. So yeah,
you did Tilo on you did Facebook, Tilo, and you did Silicon Valley Bank and Shopify. How in the world do you get to these people? How do they come in? It's just interesting. So you got a company that's in Menlo Park of Facebook. How do they find you? Just because you're not the oracle of everything? I mean, how do they find you?
I think there are a couple of reasons. First of all, we don't have a business development department or any sales people here. It's really the most is honestly word of mouth. It's really that, clients are also talking to each other, they're connecting, and if, of course, they're talking to each other and say, hey, who's actually helping you in Europe, right? Or who did your launch, or etc. And there are some companies that really are considered amongst the head of comms and public relations community as like the gold standard, where they say, okay, they're doing it amazing, right? Like with a Stripe, for example, right? And there's several companies that's saying, oh, I want the same agency set up like Stripe has, for example, right? Because they're doing such a phenomenal job and are such an amazing company. And so it's a lot about trust that I think we are also very deeply connected in the industry. I mean, we don't work for other kind of companies, right? All of our clients are 100% tech, digital, the ecosystem, like investors, for example, have a very, very clear focus. And I think most of the agencies, they are just taking on every client that they can get and diluting their brand, losing their focus. And also, of course, as I said at the beginning, not understanding that this industry ticks completely different. Companies are much more often going very quickly global, right? They need a global help. They are not so much focused on the traditional branding, and it takes years until you build a brand. They want tomorrow to be in TechCrunch, let's say, for example, right? And they say, bring me on this stage. I want to do investor relations. I need the best people. I need help with employer branding, etc. So there are a lot of issues, and it's very, very different to work with these kind of companies. Many agencies have not the knowledge and the network and the capacity and then the right people to understand that. And often, it's also highly technical. It's not just fancy B2B products like a new fancy e-bike or like a new mobility scooter service, which we say, okay, it could be also maybe a lifestyle agency, understand what they're doing, but still they need venture capital. They have different kind of approaches, and sometimes really a deep tech, right? When you're thinking about robotics, when you think about IoT, about security topics, artificial intelligence, etc. You have to really understand it, and you need people who are really technical writer also to approach the right people. So it's a different kind of skill set. It's a different kind of culture. It's a different kind of connection with the market. I mean, you mentioned already that I'm also active as an investor. Also, these kind of relationships, of course, understanding the business models, understanding how this world ticks. That's it's very, very important. And then also 1 + 1 can be 3.
No, that's great. So, you mentioned a couple of things, and I just want to explore because it's fascinating for me. So here you are in Germany. You've got a Facebook in Menlo Park or Shopify. How important, you said trust. How important, I hear that a lot. How important is trust in what you do?
I mean, it's for both for our clients and for us, it's the main issue. If you today develop a new artificial intelligence or new blockchain technology or whatever it is, right? I mean, you're competing usually not with the other startup, you're competing with the big corporates, right? And you need trust, and you need trust in every community, be it the investors. I mean, if you don't trust the founder, you wouldn't obviously work with them. If you don't trust the guy at the top, you don't want to work with him. You wouldn't buy the product. So trust is really fundamental, right? And I like the comparison to say, when in the venture capital world, money, right? That's for the kind of transactions, but trust is for interactions. If I don't trust you, I wouldn't be here on your podcast today. I would say, oh God, what's this for kind of creepy guy? Why should I be on his show? So trust is really fundamental for a lot of things. And I mean, you see what happens to companies that lose their trust, right? They don't get funded anymore. People leaving the company, you don't want to work with them anymore. Clients leaving. And I think, especially when you are in mission critical fields, when you're building a startup, a security software or AI, where you have to access a lot of data, things like that, trust is absolutely fundamental.
And so you get a company like that's coming out of Silicon Valley, they're coming to the rest of the world. So how is it? I mean, it must be exciting when you get a company that's going through the roof, right? Literally, just dominating their space. I mean, how is it to interact? So you see somebody that's Mark Zuckerberg 8 years ago, and now you see him today. How is that? It's like, it must be pretty cool, right? Seeing
it is sometimes when you see, of course, people where you see them as normal people. Then after a couple of years, they're on every TV show and every talk show and entering big stages. It's sometimes really funny to see. And when you know, okay, this guy was backpacking and was sleeping on my couch actually, and now right, he has a multi-billion.
Have you had some of those?
Yeah, of course, several times where you said, okay, this guy, and it's all because also as an agency owner, you're acting like an investor, right? I mean, you have limited capacity because it's a people business. You have to think about who you're actually taking on. When I had one founder who slept, I know he asked me if he can share the hotel room with me because he had no money to pay the hotel room, but he was on short notice invited to a conference. Everything was sold out. He slept in my bathtub and now runs $1 billion company, in the hotel room. So it's really, I mean, there's all these anecdotes.
That's gotta be really cool, right? You should write a book about your story.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we're a bit like a doctor or a lawyer, right? So we have to be a bit careful what we disclose and whatnot. But yeah, there are a lot of tons of these kind of stories, and that's the beauty, because they need they're not just they need a service provider. They need really a trusted partner, and they know that they're giving us one of the most valuable things, their brand, and they say, hey, I don't know anybody here, for example, in Germany, right? Who should I talk to actually, right? Who are the right partners for me? Which kind of events are serious? Who should I talk to, etc. So they really need someone who takes them by the hand and said, okay, this media is important for you. This journalist you can trust. On this stage you should go to reach your audience, right? They need someone who really is a 360-degree partner that really can help them, that they can trust them, right? And you know, there are a lot of tons of cultural differences, you know. I mean, often they come and maybe they're on the Forbes cover in the US and things like that, so they're very self-confident about them and their business. And then they're coming here, and then the journalist just asking them very nasty questions, right? It's like, yeah, there are cultural differences. You know, I told you should have been media trained before, right? Just being famous and being on the cover of Forbes in the US doesn't mean anything here in the US. And they have also different issues here in Germany, for example. They will always ask you about privacy, data protection, things like that, right? Questions that you maybe in the US never heard of, right? So there are a lot of things that they have also to learn, understand. And you also, as a consultant, need the strength to say, it will not work, you know? It doesn't matter how much you pay me. Either we go that way that we suggest you, or you have to do it by yourself, and then you just waste your money, waste your time, you know? And this needs also different kind of very partnership approach on eye level, where you're also able to say a multi-billion unicorn, whatever CEO guy, that will not work that way, you know? Please take our advice, and that's the way to go. And it's a different kind of skill set.
And do they listen to you?
We had one case at the beginning where they didn't listen, said, no, we are so famous and we did this and this and this. We want you to do that way, just translate the press release and just do that. So, and then we said, okay, we do it. Our deal is we do it 3 months. And if it works, right, fine. If it doesn't work, then you promise you will work the rest of your life with it, and we go. And it was exactly that. After 3 months, it was a nightmare. They were close to fire us because, oh, it doesn't work. Nobody writes about it. And we said, okay, now keep your promise. Let's do it 3 months our way. And then we did it, and it was an amazing success. And we're working, I think, since 8 years for this company, also big Silicon Valley company. But yeah, I mean, I understand that. I mean, the US is a very big domestic market, right? So it has its totally own dynamics. And then you come here to a market like Europe with a lot of countries, a lot of cultures, a lot of languages. The media landscape works totally different here. The question's different. The audience is different. I understand that you want, it's for you, it feels like a safe bet to just make it like you always do it, but it doesn't work, you know? And then that's why you need these kind of trusted providers that not working for themselves, that really care about that you are being successful, that my goals make them successful. Yeah, it's what we are working for.
So when you bring them in, just a story, just fascinating for me, having gone through and been part of a unicorn a couple of times. I've seen it happen, but it's just seen it from a different set of eyes. So can you, without naming any names, like a situation where you met with a company and today they're a multi-billion-dollar company and they're the cover of magazines, like, tell me about the journey, because it would be interesting for the startups, because we have those companies that could become unicorns, right, that are moving in that direction. Tell us about the journey, because once you understand the journey, you know it's possible, right? It's like not magic, it's possible. But tell us about the journey, just one without naming names, of a company that's world renowned now that you worked with, and how that journey started and where it ended up, and just some generalities.
Absolutely. So first of all, I think it's important to understand that PR and communication works on different stages of your company. like you have like a Series A, a Series B, a Series C, from the investment side. It works also in PR. You need different kind of communication, different kind of first of all, nobody cares, right? You have a domain, you have a website. Who cares, right? There are every day thousands of new startups are born, right? So here it's a lot about really having a very, very clear, unique communication point, making absolutely glass clear what you stand for, positioning, right? How are you different? Really, also as a founder, maybe personally reach out to some tech journalist to introduce yourself, and thinking about really building, always having in mind, it's not about a one-night stand, it's about a long-term relationship, at least in business, right? So you really thinking about, okay, this guy, I may work also in 10 years, I need him, right? So you build your first relationships, you are clear about your positioning, you're reaching out, etc. So in the next phase, where it's also then maybe strong about evaluations, etc. I mean, a lot of VCs, I mean, many of these companies don't make any money, you know? So often it's just the numbers on the one hand, that hopefully going up and up, and you show that you have a kind of this hockey stick scenario. On the other hand, it's the narrative, you know. You're telling a story, and that equals, that in the end of the day, the evaluation. And this is often what founder didn't see. They're of course focusing numbers, but they don't see that actually the narrative is a big part of valuation.
I've heard that a lot about the narrative, and you know, myself having a marketing background and building some of those stories. I mean, tell them. You know, so that we have elected a lot of technical co-founders out there today that don't, and I'm sure you've seen this, that don't really understand marketing, sales, business development. Can you just tell them, like, if you take an exact example, how you took a technical co-founder, you know, through the process and how they created that $1 billion company? That would be
the tech founders have a particular two challenges. The first one is they are so much focused on the product and building an amazing product, and forgetting that people are not interested in the product, they're interested in people, you know. People are interested in the story of people, right? I mean, and if the button is left or right or green or yellow, I mean, that's maybe then something to conversion rates, things like that. But it's actually not what makes or breaks business, right? And you see how powerful sometimes it is when the big guys like an Elon Musk or you name it say something that can really change the stock price overnight. So I think for technical founders, it's very important to understand the power of personal branding, that they need to go out, that they have to rise and shine, that they have to go out and build trust for them and for their company. And I think second is when you have these kind of companies and really want to be unicorn, is see how the leverage that you can put, or understand the leverage that you can put on your story, and in how many areas it can help you. It is not just about attracting the attention of investors. It is about also employer branding, finding the best team. It's about sales cycles. And here another third point kicks in, that what are you doing if you're a technical founder, you have a great B2B product, and you need to sell it. Everyone complains about their long sales cycles, right? But they don't understand that at the end of the day, that's scientifically proven that you at least need 7 to sometimes 30, 35 contact points with your potential buyer. So just calling them one with your sales team, that doesn't help. They have to read you in the newspaper, in the industry magazine, they see you on an industry event on the stage, they hear you in a podcast. There are a lot of touch points needed until someone makes a buying decision. And that can help shorten the sales cycles. And what do people, especially if it's a buying decision that's very expensive, they Google. If they see your company mentioned on trusted sources, that's also a problem, right? They Google, find nothing, you can be the best sales guy in the world. They will not trust you. So it is about building contact points. That's very, very important.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the thing is, you're exactly. I had a conversation today with a startup founder, and I had that exact conversation. It's like, this is a journey. This is not a one-call deal. You don't understand. If you call somebody one time, it could take 30 times to be able to get them converted. It could take 2 years. It's not. And if you try to rush the process, what happens is they go south. They don't want to deal with you anymore because you're pushing. So you got to do that balance between, you know, consultative sale and getting them interested. No, I agree with you. And the other thing,
you have to be very smart. You have to be very, very smart, and always generating contact points with them. And for example, the smart sales guys, they're using our articles, our links, and using it as contact point and sending it. Oh, hi, whatever, Jeff. You remember 3 weeks ago we talked. Here's an interview from our CEO on whatever Business Insider. Have a look. If you have questions, let me know. Or you send them an ticket to a free webinar to a certain industry topic, or an article about 10 tips about whatever, how you can use AI to whatever, make faster payments, whatever, right? So, and I mean, Gary, also I think a great role model, right? You positioned yourself very clearly in the AI space. You're producing content, you're sharing it on Medium, you have your podcast, etc. You and your network, you have always touch points with them. We are being together both on the show with LA Token, etc. So you are active, you are present, people can see you, people can reach out to you. I think you are a great role model for that, and I wish that more, especially technical and B2B founders, understand how all these things are connected to each other. A great other example is SEO, right? Search engine optimization. Everyone knows it's important, but how often do I see that founders or the marketing teams, they don't talk with the PR guys, but they are writing the content, they are writing the press release, etc. And they not know what kind of phrases and words the search engine guys are optimizing. Of course, they can't include it into the content. There's a lot of little things and a lot of things that can make or break the success.
No, I love it. I mean, what you're saying, and I was on a event in Asia this morning. Actually, I've been up since 4 o'clock in the morning on events, East Coast time. But it's, I hear this a lot now, Tilo. So part of the challenge with this digital transformation is now is the opportunity of a lifetime to get the word out, because really the opportunity has been democratized, but they need people just like you to be able to help them develop the narrative, get that SEO, get the content right, and make sure, they understand what the sales cycles are like and who their targeted audience is. And having somebody like you, I got to tell you, I wish I would know now what I did, or what 20 years ago, what I do now. I mean, having gone through it, it's so much trial and error. It's amazing. But having somebody like you as a guide, it's incredible. And I see it with the technical co-founders. It's a difference between success and failure, right? Because they get it, then the companies start buying, then they start becoming successful, then you start with the personal branding. I mean, and how important is it on a 1 to 10 scale from your own perspective? And of course, you have got an agency, but we've got 2 equal companies. The companies are from Belarus. The companies want to go global, right? The companies are just coming out. How important is the marketing of that company, in your own opinion, on a 1 to 10, to help them? Exactly the same leading edge technology that could dominate. How important is marketing?
Yeah, I mean, marketing itself is at least at 8, but most important also really communication, because the one thing booking a billboard or booking a booth at the fair, things like that. The other thing is really having trusted sources. Like, it's a different thing when New York Times writes it's a great company, or you hanging a banner or whatever, a billboard where they say we are a great company, right? This is at least another, let's say, 25 to 50% more trust. And what's most important, it's about also the continuity, right? That you are doing it on a constant basis, right?
That's
just doing it
point.
once. You have so often, right, companies come, oh, we have great funding, can you help us to spread the word? It's like, no, I will not do it. If you commit that you understand that it's a long-term thing, that we work together at least, let's say 6 months or a year or so, then please call me. But not just helping you send one press release. This is about this one-night stand versus long-term relationship. It doesn't work. It's also not great for the company, because then they establishing short-term some context to journalists, and then they maybe have more questions or want to follow the company, and they kind of disappear. That kills your reputation and doesn't build reputation. And the continuity is also the same with the consistency, also important, right? I see often founders that telling of the one stage, the one story and positioning, on the other stage, half a year later, different thing. They're always telling different kind of stories. That's also not amazing, right? You need to build a strong brand. And then, by the way, especially B2B companies can also charge more. Think about that, right? I mean, we all could just buy at the whatever train station a normal coffee paying, let's say, 30 cents, 50 cents. No, we paying £5 or $5 or $6 at Starbucks, right? It's coffee, I mean, why? Or water, right? You can just buy a no brand water, 50 cents or $1, right? No, we're buying for $3 EVO. We are willing to pay a premium price for the same product, right? It's not always about the quality. That's the funny part. not the best wins. You can have the
Ooh, I
better
love
product.
That's
You can
right.
have the better product. You can have the better
Not the
product
best
in your
win.
example, right? From
Yeah.
the two companies that you said, you can have
Yeah.
the better product. But it doesn't matter if you're not visible.
Mm-hmm. And how important? So, let's say there's a market just getting started. How important in terms of the communications? So, I've seen companies that have come in late and then started to dominate. Look at Facebook and was it Friendster? I mean, remember those days. So, but if somebody loads up on the PR stuff in advance, when should they do it and how much should they do? What's important in terms of, let's take an AI company because that's what we deal with. How important is to them, right? So they're coming out, they just raised $5 million in funding. When should they engage somebody like you to come in and help them develop that global story?
I think at the beginning, it's always important to have like a freelancer or a journalist or a professional on their side to really craft a great messaging and story. Really engaging with a PR firm, I usually tend to say kind of pre-Series A, right? So around Series A is always, I think, a good timing because then have often the product ready, the product market fit, they have the first customers, they have enough money on the bank account, they are right, that it's a bit like a proof, okay, there's a company that will also exist for a while and make their way. So that's my personal thing. And then of course, sometimes can be also earlier, for example, if you expand to another country where you have no connections, don't know anybody, usually agencies are also very well connected, so they can help you also to connect with other service providers that you might need, or finding a country manager or a corporation partner, things like that. Usually, yeah, agencies also very great for that. But it depends, of course, a little bit on the setup, but especially the topic like AI, where often people are also a bit fearful. They don't know what actually happens with the data, how they can control it. There are also a lot of political issues, often like from the policy side, etc. So I think that's even earlier important.
So, looking at going on the PR side again, somebody's raising a Series A level funding. How important is the PR impact in terms of being able to fundraise from your own perspective with the VCs?
So we have seen a lot of companies that have been approached from VCs because they read about them in the news. That's clearly the case. And often, by the way, also, it is very interesting, the M&A or investment banks, they are working also together with PR firms to strategically, for example, they're going into the process for fundraising, right? Usually it takes, let's say, 4 to 6 months, right? They're hiring also, or tell this company, hire this PR firm. They bring you strategically to all these channels, like can call it investor relations, yeah. All these channels and the tech blogs and the channels that read by investors in the business media, or when from strategic investors in certain industry media, where we think are the people who will invest in your company. And they are very, very strategic about it, and PR and storytelling is for them very important, because sometimes, especially with great companies, there are also battles, right? There are several that want to invest, right? And then the more you have on the table, your more offers and your more demand to create. It's demand creation, right? So and I think that never hurts, right? To have a bit more demand than you actually need, and you can be a bit selective. So it's a very strategic process. But also here, you need the right partner that understands that, and it can guide you through this process and can help you figure it out, because it's not just the normal bread and butter PR that you do. Here you need to be a bit smart, and we strategically think, okay, where are these people? What are they reading? On which stages are there? Where should we place them? What are they? What kind of podcasts are they hearing, etc. So it's a bit, a bit tricky. But I mean, we saw phenomenal results. Sometimes even just, I mean, it's like with Apple, a great example. Everyone thinks all these kind of rumors and things that someone leaked something. Actually, what happened is, of course they know it, and of course sometimes it's even pushed that it happens, because then they can listen to the market, what's happening, how they're reacting to a certain product, can adapting their official messages. So that's super smart from these companies. They will never, of course, say it officially, but all other big companies does it just to put feet in the water. So how you can use it is, there are several companies I know that they drop just a message as they're fundraising, and one journalist made a story out of it. Oh, this company is in the fundraising. I have exclusive news. They are fundraising, etc. It was not even true, right? But what happened is all the investors had never heard about the companies. Oh, I have missed the deal. Why is now everyone talking about this company? I should reach them out, right? And out of a sudden, that they're not even right. They had a lot of offers on the table and discussions just because they're being smart. They're being smart and
so
just
they had that they were fundraising, but they weren't really fundraising, and they just put a word out.
Of course, they wanted fundraising down the line, right? But just as I said, hey, let's spread the rumor. There was not from the company. Some company said, oh no, of course not, and right, of course we will at one point fundraising, right? At one point, and then see what you get. But of course, what happened is that was like a rumor that was, or the journalists figured something out and found it out. It was like exclusive news that this company will fundraise and talking to some big Silicon Valley, whatever, venture capital, etc. And right now, the email inbox, you could look at the email inbox of all the VCs wrote them and said, hey, I've read that you're fundraising. Can we have a chat, right? I mean, it's all psychology. It's all psychology. You know?
No, I'll tell you, I've seen it with corporate development folks. I know from my own experiences, they talk to each other a lot. And once one starts, you get 3. And once 3 starts, you get 12. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's like a feeding frenzy. I've never seen anything like it. And by the way, each time the price goes up because they're competing. I don't know where they meet each other, at the health club or lunch or whatever, but the prices go up. It's very interesting. You're right. It's about psychology and trust. So if you have a company today that comes from the US to Europe or Europe to the US, and then they say they want to go to China, how would you do that? How do you use that incredible network that you have to be able to facilitate and help those companies that are your clients?
Luckily, we have some Chinese colleagues in the team, and often here they're also a bit more advanced when it comes to communication. I mean, everything, if you don't have, for example, a WeChat account, you don't exist there, right? So right. Of course, we're helping them building up the presence in Weibo, on WeChat, producing the content, working also with local partners together that they get a bit pushed there by our paid social activities, right? But also here, I mean, you know, PR works a little bit different. There's just some media that really work like the traditional PR model that we know it. Often it is more like advertorials that you have there, right? But also here it's important to select the right media, but also to think about what kind of events I should appear. Of course, the dynamics and systematics often work there a little bit different. But actually, it works quite well. It's actually often easier than in the US or here in Europe, because often it's more like an advertorial business. So it's more about finding out the messages, the strategy, the right media, the right contacts, taking care of their social channels. So it's but here, of course,
it's
much
all
more
together. It all influences, right? What about, Tilo, if you have a company that's just coming out, this is a company that's got incredible technology. They haven't raised funds yet. They need to get some visibility. What do? What's important for them? They don't have a lot of money in the bank. Maybe they got 10,000 a month MRR. What do they do?
I think the question is what they actually want. Do they want clients? They want investors, etc. It's a bit different. But I would say, let's say, for example, clients, right? I would really talk to my clients at what are the 5 most important or 10 most important sources, like blogs, podcasts, events, newspapers, etc. Right? And then laser sharp targeting them. In the best possible way, not spray and pray, right? It's often they're writing a press release and then just sending out thousands via a buyer service, something like that. But really laser focused, talk to them, introducing yourself personally, telling your story, and then getting hopefully the coverage that you deserve and building a great relationship with them. It's not about the amount, it's about the quality in this stage.
What about, so what kind of publications? So if they're coming out that's before they would come to you, right? Or when do they come to you? I mean, it's a company that's hot. When would they say, hey, Tilo, I'm interested in working with you? When do you pick them up?
I mean, usually pre-Series A is definitely a good timing. I mean, if they're really hot, then of course a bit earlier, then we find also a good deal here. But yeah, that's from timing-wise, definitely. And I mean, when it comes to messaging, positioning, and of course also the strategy going forward. I think it's very, very important to really establish a network, and also willing to, as you as a founder, especially in this young stage of the company, personally reach out, connecting, introducing yourself, being on stage, being present, and position yourself as an expert for your topic, right? That you say you're building also your personal brand, that you stand for something, right? That you are everyone after, let's say, a while, they're not, oh, this is the guy who always I call when it's about AI. He's the expert for AI, for example, or he's the expert for whatever, security or blockchain or health tech or biotech or whatever, right? Or he's a founder. He comes from whatever Eastern Europe. When it's about the Eastern Europe and the ecosystem in Eastern Europe, or when it's about it's China, right? Expanding to China, he did it already. So you have to stand for something. You have to be an expert for something. I mean, look at me, right? I mean, I'm sure I have more talents than just PR, but everyone knows me as the tech PR guy, you know. And
oh yeah,
that's
absolutely.
totally fine. Right? That's the draw. That's the draw that I'm in, right? We all have other talents and interests also. But that's what you're known for, that what you stand for, and that's our destiny. But it's a positive destiny.
It's positive. No, it's incredible. And what are the biggest pitfalls that you've seen companies do that have really, like, taken a company that's in growth mode and they've made mistakes? What are the pitfalls that you've seen them do from a PR and communication side that's really killed them?
Well, there are several, but just to name three. First of all, that they are too self-confident that nothing can happen to them, that they're not prepared for a crisis, and it can always happen. There a technology can be difficult. A deadline is the management team can have a fight and disappear. An investor round doesn't happen, etc. Can always happen. You have to be prepared. You have to be always on alert, and a bit like a lawyer, like in worst case mode. And but it gives you a good feeling when you know you are prepared. Second failure is definitely that you treat everyone the same way when it comes to expanding your business, right? That you're doing your PR the same, or want to do the same, like in the US or in Germany or in Netherlands or in France. That you think it's one big world and everything has to be the same. Everyone has to speak English and everyone works the same way, like here in the US or where we're from Russia or where we're from, right? That you accept there are cultural differences and you listen to the local partner. Otherwise, you waste a lot of time and money if you don't adapt to the local culture. Adapting doesn't mean just translating a press release. That's not. I mean, even in Germany, Austria, Switzerland, the three German-speaking countries, even there are so many cultural differences that you should be aware of. Even there, it's complicated. Now, imagine you're tackling, let's say, Japan, France, and whatever. It's just crazy. That doesn't work. Doesn't work that way. And I think third, don't underestimate your personal brand, the power from PR in general, because if you're not in control of your brand, of your message, someone else will, and this someone else will be your competition. And you don't want that your story out there is formed and crafted by your competition. So be in control of your story and take care of your story and spread your story. Otherwise, someone else will do. That will be not better.
Tilo, have you ever seen situations where competitors have put out information that's not true and really hurt a company?
Absolutely, yeah, that happens. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes,
How did
that happens?
What is this?
But that's why that's obviously a big problem, a big issue, and this is exactly what I mean. If you're not prepared for it, if you don't have your social media channels in place, your PR team, your wordings, your messages, then you're really struggling, right? I have seen companies that takes 3 weeks to publish press release on their website, where I said, I mean, in 3 weeks, I mean, the world can be a different place, I mean, that's not how PR works, or if your website is hacked, what is your second source? Do you have other established channels where you can distribute news? And also, therefore, you need established and trusted relationship with journalists, where you can grab the phone and say, hey, actually, this happened, and here's our opinion. Let's make something out of it. And I think this is a very, very critical part that you're addressing, because it happens all the time, because often founders think the other startup is my competition, instead of seeing that the big corporate is actually my competition, because they're using the old software or the old tools and processes and methodologies, right? But often that happens. But here it's important that you have a great setup, a good structure in place, both when it comes to channels, but also teams, but also wording and messaging.
And how fast? So something bad news comes out. How important is it to respond quickly to it and to be able to address the issues?
Yeah. Timing is everything, absolutely. And I think it's like with the company, right? You can also have bad timing when you're launching a company and maybe it fails, and 5 years later it's the same idea. Timing is everything, but here, especially in a crisis, it's important. But important is also that you stick to the facts, right, and not just saying something where you have like a wishful thinking. It's very important to be honest. And also here, if people trusted you before because you built a strong brand, then you have a higher chance that they will also trust you afterwards. And if you just then, which we already had, people reaching out, totally panicking, is oh my god, what are we being hacked, and didn't this happen? I said yes, but actually there's so much homework we have to do now before we actually can do something. Of course, we can always craft a message and think about who we reach out to and how to spread the word. But in the end of the day, it would be much easier if there are already some established channels, there's some wordings there, there's a team, they have some journalists they trust and can reach out to. That makes things much easier. Yeah, but being quick in reacting, and it should, especially in crisis, should come from the head of the company, from the CEO, that he apologizes, that he explains, but stick to the truth. Be honest, be clear. Also, what kind of consequences following out of it, and be still reachable, and be open also to deliver on a constant level news, because especially in a crisis, you will not have all information at once. You have to first say, oh, I apologize and this happened. That's the knowledge that we have right now. But tomorrow at the same time, we come back and give you more information, right? So this is very, very important.
What about now with this pandemic? So last question. So companies are locked in. So if you're in the UK right now, you're locked up, in many parts of the US, around the world. So it's different today than it was a year ago. How do they address it, and how do they deal with you in this circumstance? So what are your recommendations?
Yes, it's important to understand that, of course, many companies, and especially B2B companies, rely on physical relationships. They go into events to connect with potential buyers, to potential clients, to potential investors, things like that. This all kind of disappeared, right? It's not comparable with an online event, right? You need this kind of energy, the physical contact, first of all. Second, what we see is really shifting, because they need this visibility. They need more digital visibility now. They're shifting their event budgets now to digital communication. So they're building their own webinars, their own event series, their own podcast. They're publishing more white papers, case studies, reaching out on LinkedIn, on Twitter, on other platforms to the target audience. So they shifted really the entire offline communication and the budget to digital communication. So we have a lot of requests right now. Can you help me with my LinkedIn, with my podcast, with my webinar, with my event, etc.? And it's really, of course, amazing for us. But you see, you have to be adaptable, right? You have to have the right people in place, the right products, and because the companies, they need to grow. They have their KPIs, the investors giving them pressure, and they have to shift. They cannot say, who knows when the next event happens? Right now, nothing happens. We'll see what's next year. But still, until there's a vaccine and then not everyone takes it, not the availability, until it's really that everyone. It is. I think that at least 6 months. We still will not have this proper big events, right? And so companies have to be adaptable. But at the same time, things also like internal communication are very important, because people are now a bit in fear, right? Will I lose my job? Is the company healthy, etc., right? So it's very important to also internally communicate very well and professional, to take out the fear, to be approachable. People are now in home office, right? The entire companies that
I agree. That's internal PR,
they are
right?
alone at home, and they don't know, oh my God, what actually happens? Will I lose my job? What's going on here, right? Also the investor community. What are the companies that are still doing well, where I can invest in? Things like that. Communication has been never as important as before as right now.
No, that's fantastic. I just want to say it's just, I greatly appreciate your time. You're amazing. And I'm so glad that we met a few months ago and have developed this relationship. It's incredible. And it's right from the heart. I mean, I feel the same way. I mean, that's why we're extremely active. And we're working with a lot of those AI companies that can be your customers, by the way. So I just want to say thank you, Tilo. You've given us incredible.
Thank you, Gary, for having me.
And next week, so we're going to be starting every week now instead of every 2 weeks. I just want to tell our audience, I have the former Chief Security Officer at Apple, Rick Orloff, and one of the foremost security experts in the world, Dave Luna, former State Department employee, works a lot with security of missing exploited children and how to be able to find them using all kinds of incredible technology, illicit goods trades, etc. Incredible guys. And I want to say thank you for your time again, Tilo. It's great to have you.
For having me.
Thanks to my audience. Appreciate it. We'll be back again next week, 11:10, same time, same channel. Love to see you, and thank you very much. Thanks, Tilo. Thanks for your time.
Look forward to talking to you soon.
See you later. Bye-bye.